Hello everyone and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about how to view challenges in our lives as the path to where we want to go versus seeing them as something that is in the way of where we want to go. Okay? Because a lot of the time when we say that we want to change, we want to grow, we want to become something new, we want to experience something different, we have an idea in our head of what that is going to look like. We have an idea in our head of the path that we are going to have to take in order to get to that place. And we have an idea in our head of what the journey to that kind of destination of who we want to become or the life we want to live or the outcome that we want is supposed to look like. And in real reality, a lot of the time, the situation is going to be something totally different. And we are going to be faced with challenges and obstacles and things in our way that look to us like it's getting in the way of us becoming who we want to become and experiencing what we want to experience. And rather than seeing it like that, rather than looking at the things that are on our path and the obstacles that we're facing and the challenges that we're facing as things that are preventing us from having what we want. If we can shift our perspective to seeing that the mountain is the way, it is not in the way of getting to the mountaintop. In this way, we are going to have a much better chance at supporting ourselves in moving towards what we want and becoming the kind of people that we want to become, and seeing that in order to hold the life that we want, in order to be capable of actually existing in this life that we want, we are going to have to climb a mountain, and we are going to have to become the kind of person who climbed the mountain in order to sustain a life at the mountaintop. Okay? So this is about learning how to see the things that come up in our life, not as the obstacles that are in the way, not as something we need to wait until this changes or hope that this goes away, or waiting until the thing that is seemingly holding us back from having what we want and becoming who we want to become clears itself. And understanding that the more we get into it, the more we mine it for what it has for us, the more we are going to see that it's actually the refining fire that we need to turn us into the kind of person who can live the life we want to live and have the thing we want to have. Okay? So now, before we get into any of this, before we get too deep, before we go anywhere, I want to validate and acknowledge that there are going to be times and places in life where the obstacles in our way are things that are happening because society is unfair and people are unfair. And sometimes life is unfair. Just the circumstances that we find ourselves in are unideal and very painful and very harmful and hurtful. And there are situations of abuse and situations of neglect and situations where we don't have access to the things that we need, situations where we go through illness and just really horrible things that are not our fault, that we would not choose, that we did not choose, that are incredibly traumatizing, that are incredibly harmful, that I want to make sure that I start at the very beginning of this video saying, if anything that I say in this video feels like I'm telling you you're supposed to be grateful for a horrible thing that's happening or has happened to you, please know that that is not what I am saying. Also, I am not saying that we need to see everything that happens to us as having some greater purpose, and that it's going to turn us into something, and that it's something we need to be grateful for, or see the positive side in, or see it as the mountain on the way to the mountaintop kind of thing. This does not apply to everything, what I'm going to say in this video. And if what I'm going to say in this video, feels like telling you that you have to be grateful for something horrible that's happening to you, please know that then this doesn't apply to what you're going through. And only you can decide if you want to view something in your life in the way that I'm speaking to here, and if that feels supportive for you, and if that feels conducive to helping you move forward. If it feels like trying to apply this message to your situation makes you feel like you're being grateful for being abused, or like you're being grateful for being born into a situation where you have a chronically ill body, or you don't have access to the things that you need, or there are literal things in your path that you would do better not having, disregard this. Okay? This message does not apply to everything. It does not apply to everyone. Just like anything that we are going to take in on the internet, any video, any teaching, any spiritual teaching, any mindset shift, it doesn't apply to everything. It doesn't apply to every circumstance. Okay? So I am not saying that people who have suffered true abuse have to look at their abuse as though it was like the path towards this person they were supposed to become. I am not saying that. Okay? You are allowed to just be upset about the things that you are facing. You are allowed to wish that they were never happening. You are allowed to say, who would I be if I hadn't been traumatized in this way, or if I hadn't been faced with these circumstances? So I want to put that caveat before I even start, that this absolutely doesn't apply to everything. This doesn't apply to everyone. This doesn't apply to every situation. And if it does not feel supportive, if it does not feel empowering, if it doesn't feel kind and compassionate to apply what I am going to say to your situation, don't. Okay? I have lots of other videos that are about just shitty things that happen, because I think it's very important for us as human beings to validate and acknowledge that sometimes things are just shitty. And sometimes we don't want to look for the bigger purpose in it. Sometimes we don't want to even believe there is a bigger purpose for it. Sometimes we will look at things that happen to us and just say, I would have been better off had that not happened to me. And that is legitimate, and that is fair, and that is valid. Okay? So we're going to start there. Only apply this message to yourself if it feels supportive, and if it feels self-loving, and if it feels compassionate. Okay? Okay. This doesn't apply to everyone. This doesn't apply to everything, just like all teachings. Only apply it to yourself if it feels good to apply it to yourself. If it does not, disregard it and find something that feels supportive for where you're at right now. Okay? Okay. So that's that. Now, let's get into what I was going to talk about, which is this. So the metaphor of this kind of teaching that I'm giving here is this. There can be no mountaintop without the mountain. There can be no beautiful cake without the heat of the oven. Yes? There can be no you who has run the marathon without the marathon. And in life, there are going to be times and places where we want to become something we have never been before. We want to achieve something we have never achieved before. We want to experience something we have never experienced before. So we want to become the kind of person who can handle tough situations without letting our emotions completely derail us. We want to become the kind of person who can open ourselves to love after we have been hurt and harmed a million times. We want to become the kind of person who can create something, right? Who can run a business or paint or write or play an instrument or be a DJ, whatever it is. We want to see ourselves experience something that we have never experienced before. And we want to become the kind of person who can do things that we currently are not capable of doing. And this is a normal part of being alive. Okay? This is a healthy sign that we are living, breathing beings who are on a life-generating path. A path where we see that we have potential within us to become something that we've never been before and to do something we've never done before. Just like, right, a small baby seeing everyone around them walk and wanting to walk, even though that small baby has never crawled before or can't even hold their own head up yet. Okay? And what we need to understand about life is this. In order to become that new being, in order to become the kind of person who can handle tough situations without letting your emotions get ahead of you, who can play the piano, to become the baby who can walk, we need the challenge and the resistance of life to develop the skills to become that kind of person. There is no becoming the baby who can't even hold their head up to becoming the baby that can walk without lots of struggle and not being able to do the lift your head until you can, and not being able to crawl the way you want to crawl until you can, and falling down and stumbling and toddling all around, and then learning the skill of how to walk. There is no learning how to embrace your emotions without starting from a place of those emotions that we have being incredibly uncomfortable, being things that we have a hard time identifying, being those things that we struggle to face, we struggle to sit with, our nervous system can't handle it. There is no learning to play the piano or learning to write or starting the small business without going through periods where we heavily doubt ourselves, where we lack the motivation to practice, where we lack inspiration, where we have no desire to put in the effort we need to put in, without sitting down and being deeply uncomfortable as we write and write and write and write, or play our scales, or do whatever we're going to do. The thing that we think we need to get over before we can do the thing we need to do, right? So many of us get in our minds that those challenges, they're like, yeah, but my emotions are really uncomfortable, so I can't do it. Or I'm not motivated to sit down and write and play the piano. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'm not inspired. The putting myself out there on social media and doing my small business and all this stuff, is really uncomfortable and I don't know how to do it and I'm not good at it. Therefore, I need to wait until a better time, until it's not so hard, until I'm more inspired, until I'm more motivated. That is the very mindset that makes it so that we will never become who we want to become. That makes it so that we will never get where we want to get, and we will never grow into the thing we want to grow into. We need to realize that the second we say we want to grow into something, the second we say we want to become a kind of person who can do something we can't do right now, the second we say we want to develop a personality aspect of ourselves, we need to expect that the next several phases of that journey are going to be us figuring out what we didn't even know we needed to do and grow into and figure out and discover along the path that we didn't even know was going to be there. Okay? The first thing that's going to happen is that the journey is going to look nothing like what we think it's going to. We are going to be surprised. We are going to be thrown for many loops. And we are going to figure out that the mountain contains so many different things that we did not see coming, that we did not expect, that we did not think were going to be a part of the path. And the mind is going to tell us, when we continue to bump up against obstacles that we didn't know were going to be there, that this means that we're on the wrong path, that it's impossible, that we can't get there, that life is telling us no, that there is no way, or that life is going wrong and we have to wait for it to change to be what we expected it to be. That's the first thing that's going to happen. The path is not going to look how you expected it to look. And it is going to contain many steps and many phases that you didn't even know were going to be a part of the path. And your brain is going to want, probably, to say, this means I can't get there. This means life has gone wrong. This means the path is impossible. And so the very first thing that I want to offer you today in this class about how the mountain is the way, it's not in the way, is when you are pursuing becoming something you've never been before and achieving something you've never achieved before. If you can go into it with a new perspective that says, everything that comes up on the path is a part of the path. Everything that comes up on the path is a part of the path. This is one of the most helpful mindsets that I have ever used when I have worked to create a life that was completely different than anything I'd ever seen anyone else live, and that it was different than anything I'd ever lived. Okay? So for instance, going from living in Canada, being a Canadian citizen, and having no online business experience, and being technologically challenged and not going to university, to someone who now has a long-term visa in a foreign country, took me a decade. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to put out there. The journey was very long. And the second thing is, within that decade, the amount of obstacles and hoops and steps and things I had to do that I had no idea about at the beginning of my journey are too many to count. Okay? I started living in Vancouver, eventually getting my first online job. Didn't even know how I was going to make that happen. Thinking, great, I can just move to Thailand now. Like, honestly, that's what I thought. I was so uneducated about visas, about international baking, about what it actually takes to immigrate somewhere, about all of these things, about taxes and working online and all of the legal things that go along with that. Literally had no idea. I actually believed 10 years ago that I could just take my online job, move to Thailand, and that was that. Right? Little did I know. Not even close. Not even kind of close. Right? I started with the tourist visa thing and then quickly realized that was a pretty unsustainable lifestyle. Right? You can't just visa hop forever. And then figuring out how to get my husband his job. Figuring out that we had to get married. Figuring out that we had to first move to Montreal for him to get his qualifications to get a job in the United States, which would then lead to him being able to take his job remote, which would then move us to Mexico for a couple of months. And then we did the tourist hopping thing over here. And then we realized, okay, long-term visas essentially don't exist in Thailand. And we literally discovered a whole new country that we live in. And all of this stuff happened. And then getting the visa for the country that we live in now required so many steps. And there were closures of the visa program, and then it opened again, and then it closed again, and then it opened, and then documents expired. And there were so many things that had to happen between I really want to live in Asia full time and actually being able to make a sustainable life out of that I had no idea about at the beginning. But the thing that kept me going was every time there was a setback, every time I realized the plan I had or how I thought it was going to go didn't go that way, every time life went totally sideways, I assumed there was a way. That was the big delusion that I think is the reason why I have been able to achieve many of the things that I've been able to achieve. Is that when life handed me a, no, you can't do it that way, I was never willing to be like, oh, well then that means it's not possible. Instead, I said, oh, I was wrong about what the path was going to look like. So now, how can I get curious? And how can I start to figure out what the path actually does look like? Right? I realized that my version of what I thought were going to be the steps up the mountain were not. I thought the terrain was base camp, cross a river, go through a short forest, and then I'm at the mountaintop. And so I went from base camp, and then I crossed that river that I could see, and then there was a whole field that I had no idea about, with all these holes and a million snakes. And instead of me saying, oh, there's supposed to be a forest here, this field is wrong. Right? Because in my mind, in the map I had created, there was supposed to be a forest. That's what I was expecting. But I crossed the river and ended up in this big scary field that had all these snakes. Right? And it would have been reasonable. It would have been what most people would have done. To have said, oh, okay, so there is no mountaintop. Right? There's no way. It's not the forest. I can't even see the forest. I was wrong. And I can't get there. I don't know how to cross a field. I didn't prepare for this. I have no idea what this even is. Or I could say, okay, well, I'm just going to wait until this field becomes the forest. Reality got it wrong. The mountain is behaving weird. So I'm just going to wait until this field fixes itself. Or I could have said, okay, there's a field and I have to cross the field and there's a bunch of snakes, but I'm not going to start walking until I learn how to cross a field with snakes in it. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to take any steps. I'm not going to move forward until I'm good at this. And all three of those choices would have meant that I didn't get to where I wanted to go. Instead, what I did was I said, okay, I have to start walking this field with all these snakes, and I'm just going to have to figure out how to walk a field with snakes as I do it. And I got bit a couple of times. And it was hard, and it was scary, and it was challenging, and I didn't know what I was doing. But by walking, by assuming, oh, okay, I got the map wrong. I thought there was supposed to be a forest here. Turns out there's a field. Turns out the field is full of snakes. And I'm going to have to learn how to walk through a field full of snakes. And that's the only way to get there. This is a part of the mountain. It's a part of the mountain I didn't expect. It's the part of the path that I didn't know was going to be here. But it is part of the path. And therefore, I will figure it out as I go. And that's what I did. And this is the mindset that I want to first, right? The first kind of mindset shift I want to offer to you. When you are headed wherever you want to go, when you are trying to become the thing you've never become, when you're trying to do the thing you've never done, when you're working on shifting into being a person you've never been before, it's not going to look how you think it's going to look. The path is not going to look how you think it's going to look. And so when that happens, can you look at it like, okay, this is not a sign that I cannot have what I want. This is not a sign that there is no mountaintop. This is not something I need to wait until it changes, until I start moving. This is the path. I didn't expect it, and that makes sense because I've never walked this path before. There was no way that I could have known everything that was going to be on the path. Life is getting it right. This is just what it looks like. This is what I have to do that I just didn't know I was going to have to do. That's the first mindset shift I want to offer you today. Just because it looks different than what you thought it was going to look like doesn't mean that something has gone wrong, doesn't mean that you can't get there, doesn't mean that this is a sign that you will never get there. Rather, it means the path is just different than what you thought it was going to be. It's going to contain things that you did not expect. And life didn't get it wrong. And it's not a sign that you can't have it. It just means it's going to be more complicated than you thought it was going to be. And the path is going to be longer than you thought it was going to be. Okay? So that's mindset shift number 1. When you are headed where you want to go, it is going to look different than what you thought it was going to look like. And it's very important that we have the mindset capacity to say, good, this is what the path is. Life did not get it wrong. This challenge that's ahead of me is not a sign that I can't get there. It's not a sign that it's impossible. And it's not something I need to wait until it clears, and then I will start walking. We need to start to assume that the path is presenting itself, and that everything that comes up is the path. Okay? Second thing, you are going to have to learn to do things that you do not know how to do as you go. You are going to have to learn things that you don't know on the way. You are not going to be able to prepare for everything before you start, or as it comes up. We can't wait until we are skilled before we start doing the things we need to do. Rather, we are going to fail our way. We are going to fail our way towards where we want to go. Okay? So like I said, in the metaphor, walking through that field where there were a bunch of snakes, I did not know how to do that before I did it. I did not know how to handle snakes before I faced them. I did not know how to treat a snake bite until I had gotten one. Right? And again, I don't want to say that we should just live our lives willy-nilly, just jumping into things, never thinking, never planning. This is not what I'm saying. Okay? There's a reasonable amount of research that we can do into things. We can plan. We can predict with reasonable certainty certain things that are going to happen. Right? Like, we can know we're going to get hungry, and so we bring a snack. We can know that it might rain, so we bring an umbrella. We can research to the best of our ability the people who have achieved the things that we want to achieve, who have done the things that we want to do, who have become the kind of people we want to become. And we can glean lessons from them around what the steps are and what they did to prepare and what they did. This is great stuff. And I highly recommend that anytime you're going anywhere or doing anything, that you look at the people who are living as something similar to what you want to live and learn from them. However, right, there are going to be times and places in life where we want to do something and become something that we have never seen anyone else do. That's part of being alive, I think, and I think it's a brilliant part of being alive, is that we all have a very unique way of moving through the world, and we have a unique set of desires and a unique set of circumstances that mean that our path is going to look unique to us. even if it's similar to other people. So that's the first thing, right? In this kind of section of learning how to do things you've never done before and understanding that you're not going to be prepared before you go, is realizing that your path is going to look how your path is going to look. And there is no way to be perfectly prepared for something you've never done before. And for a person to become the kind of person you've never been before. There is no way to make sure that you're always comfortable, that you're always prepared, and that you always have the skills that you need to succeed at every step, because you have never done it before. So this is the other thing, right? Just because you can intellectually understand going to the gym and lifting weights, just because you can do all the research and you work with a physiotherapist or a personal trainer and you get all the tips and you've read all the books and you know all the theory, it is not the same thing as actually going to the gym and lifting weights. Yes? The theory is not the experience. And theory does not make us capable of doing what we want to do. Theory is only a conceptual understanding. It's important. It's necessary. We need theory. We need understanding. Because, of course, right, we don't want to go to the gym and hurt ourselves. We don't want to go to the gym and lift weights all crazy and cause tears and muscle injury and all of these things. However, just because you intellectually understand how to lift 100 pounds, if your body has never done it before, you are not going to be able to lift 100 pounds. You are not going to prepare so much that you can go to the gym for the first time and deadlift twice your body weight. Your muscles will not be prepared for that, because it does not matter how much theory you have. It does not matter how much you understand what the path is going to look like. It does not matter how much research you have done. You are going to have to start with lighter weights. And you have to go through the process of actually doing the weightlifting before you can deadlift twice your body weight. I would break in two. Exactly. This is what we need to understand about becoming something we've never been before and doing something we've never done before. You are going to have to fail many, many times at doing what you want to do and realizing where your weak points are and realizing where you need to grow and realizing where you need to just put in the effort of doing the thing over and over and over again until you become good at it. And the only way to do that is to do it. You can't get ready and then go. You get ready by going, right? We don't get fit before we go to the gym. We don't say, I'm not going to go to the gym until I'm able to lift twice my body weight in a deadlift. We go to the gym and we see where our actual capacity is at, which might be 30 pounds. And we have to start with failing with 30 pounds, lifting until we fail. And that is what creates the muscle growth that eventually allows us to lift 45 pounds. And then we can lift 60. And then we can lift 75. Do you see what I'm saying here? Is the metaphor making sense? There is no way to walk the field full of snakes before you walk the field full of snakes. So this is the thing, right? I assumed The field full of snakes was the next thing. Rather than saying, there must be some other way. I'm going to wait till all the snakes clear out. I'm going to look for a different path. I'm going to keep waiting for that forest that I thought was supposed to be there to just magically appear. I'm going to wait till I know how to handle snakes and walking before I walk. None of those were an actual option. The only option that actually existed was walking through the field of snakes and figuring out how to handle the snakes as I went. And I became the kind of person who knew how to handle the snakes because I walked the field full of snakes. So now I can stand here and I can tell you, generally speaking, what it's like. I can give you lessons that I have learned. I can tell you tips and tricks. And you can take those in. But that doesn't then mean you know how to do it. That doesn't then mean you know how to actually handle a snake. The only way you know that you know how to handle a snake is because you've handled a snake in real life. So yes, read the books. Get the wisdom. Don't put yourself in a situation where you might get poisoned and die. But understand that the only way to get through that field is to get through it. You have to go. The only way to really know that you know how to do it, and the only way to get to the other side, is to walk. So that's the other big part of this metaphor, right? Is like the theory of it isn't getting you to the other side. Understanding something intellectually is not walking the path. Knowing it up here, knowing the map, knowing what the path is going to look like, right? If you're ready to go on a car trip from where you are to where you want to go, and you have the map in front of you, and you know every turn you're going to have to take, and you're perfectly planned, and you're in the car, and you have your snacks, and you know where you're going to stop, and all of that stuff, are you at your destination? No. You have to actually drive. So this is the big part that a lot of people miss. Is that they say, well, I'm going to wait till I'm good at it before I do it. Or I totally understand it, so I should be able to do it. No. You have to practice, and you have to fail, and you have to see where your intellectual understanding doesn't equal capacity. Capacity only comes from doing it, and doing it is the only way to get from where you are to where you want to go. Okay, so how can you be patient without using it as an excuse to go slower than you should? Sometimes I feel like I'm being patient, but I'm actually just moving too slow. I think this is a good question, and I think that the way that I would usually answer it is this. As odd as this may sound, when we make it safe for ourselves to go slow, when we say, okay, maybe I am going slower than I could go, maybe I am giving myself an excuse not to push myself, and we say, okay, I give myself permission to do that. That's okay. It is okay that I might not be going as hard as I could. It is okay that I might be going easier on myself than I could be. When we make it safe that we are doing what we are doing, and we fully tell ourselves, I give myself permission to go at this pace. I fully give myself permission to do this the way that I'm doing it right now. if we really need to go faster, the motivation to do that will come from that place of safety. As odd as this sounds, right? I just want you to notice in your body, like literally everyone who's watching this right now, if you feel like you're going too slow and you're not pushing yourself hard enough, how does it feel in your body when you say to yourself, I'm going too slow, I need to push it, I need to go harder, I need to go faster, I'm failing, I'm not doing as good as I should be doing or could be doing? Right? What happens in your body when you say that to yourself? I want you to just observe. I want you to just feel what that feels like. And my guess is that doesn't feel very good, right? It might feel kind of like buzzy and in your head and like, yeah, I gotta go, but it doesn't feel grounded. Or it probably feels really heavy and tight and contracting and maybe anxiety and you shrink, exactly. Which means even if we are technically capable of going faster, from that place of shrinkage, we're not going to be able to. Right? From that place of trying to force ourselves and trying to push ourselves and telling ourselves that we have to and telling ourselves that we're failing. We're trying to motivate ourselves. That makes sense. But it's probably not going to work. Rather, when you say to yourself, you know what? Okay. The reality may be that I could be going faster and I'm not. I must have a good reason for why I'm not going faster. I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt and assume that there is a reason. Maybe I don't feel safe. Maybe I don't feel prepared. Maybe I'm feeling intimidated. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe there's something going on in my life that's preventing me from being able to do that. Or maybe I have this constant voice in my head that's telling me I should be going faster, that's constantly scaring the shit out of me. So when I shift into, you know what, it's okay. It's okay that I'm going slow. It's okay that I could push myself and I don't want to. What's going to happen is either we're going to realize that the pace we're going is fine. Okay? Sometimes the answer is going to be, I'm just going to go slower than I thought I should go. And that's okay. I have time. This is the rate that my nervous system is capable of. Because we have to sometimes remember that what our minds are capable of, right? In our mind, we might be able to visualize ourselves lifting 100 pounds or double our body weight in a deadlift. But just because our minds can do it doesn't mean our body is actually capable of that. So when we come into our actual feelings and our actual body and our nervous system and take our whole being into account, not just our mind and what we think it should be, we might discover this is what my nervous system is actually capable of. Even though my mind wants to go faster, my nervous system is at its capacity. If I tried to push myself harder, I would hurt myself. And I want to make this clear that it's a reality that we cannot push our nervous systems past what they're capable of. And a lot of the time when we try and do that, we actually set ourselves back, right? If we go to the gym and we lift more weight than we're actually capable of lifting, we don't then just become superhumans who can lift heavier weight. We hurt ourselves. And when we hurt ourselves, we actually make progress slow down because now we have to rest and we have to heal. And it actually would have gone faster if we had just slowed down. Do you see what I'm saying? In the long run, when we respect the capacity of our nervous system, we will go as fast as we are capable of going. When we try to push beyond what we're capable of, we will hurt ourselves and we will slow ourselves down. So when we have compassion for ourselves, we will either recognize that the speed that we are going is the speed our whole being is capable of, not just our minds. Does this make sense? And we don't want to push ourselves past what our whole being can do, just because our minds think we can do it. Or second thing, we will make ourselves so safe in doing what we're currently doing that the discomfort of where we are and the passion we have to go forward will start to take over, and we will then become more motivated. If we are actually capable of more, when we make ourselves safe, that is when we're going to find our motivation. That is when we are going to find our capacity. That is when we are going to find that. So again, I want you to tap into your body. When you give yourself permission to go at the speed that you're going right now, and you make it okay, I want you to notice what happens in your body. Do you relax into, this is actually my capacity? And that's okay. And knowing that so long as you take it at your capacity, you are getting there as quickly as you can. Or is there motivation that then comes up that feels grounded? Okay, so not in your head, not buzzy, not pushing you to go and like completely overhaul your entire life and change everything and, pack your bags and move. Unless that's really, really, really what your nervous system is ready for. Or do you notice that there's a subtle shift in what you feel capable of today, and then you can do that? But either way, it's going to come from compassion. Now, it feels unsafe to not beat myself up for some reason. Yes. Okay, so this is the last thing that I'm going to say about this. There's going to be a voice in your head that wants to give up, right? And look for every excuse for how, well, this is hard and I'm not good at it, so I shouldn't try. Or this is not what I thought it was going to look like, so it's wrong. And we need to love those voices and understand they are just trying to keep us safe. Admitting we're wrong is hard sometimes. Admitting that it's going to be harder than we thought it was going to be is hard. And admitting that we are going to have to try and fail and be uncomfortable is hard. Okay? That is the path. You are not going to become who you want to become, and you are not going to get where you want to go comfortably. We need to let that go. Right? The being kind to ourselves and the being on our own side and the checking in with our nervous systems. This is all very important so that we don't push past our capacity. But we are going to have to ride our edge of discomfort in order to get to where we want to go. It's not going to be easy. It will be uncomfortable. It will push you to places you've not been before. You are going to have to fail. You are not going to be good at it for a little while. You're going to realize there are obstacles you don't know how to face, and you're going to try things and it's going to fail, and you're going to try a different way and it's going to fail, and you just have to not give up. Okay, so we balance that with the reality and the understanding that a lot of us really believe that the way to motivate ourselves is to beat ourselves up. We truly believe that if we keep pointing out our flaws and we keep pointing out how shitty we are and we keep pointing out how we're failing in life, and if we don't do this thing, we suck and da 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 da, that this is what's going to motivate us. But this is not the reality. What I really want you to tap into is the fact that reality will motivate you. When you are loving yourself, when you are being kind to yourself, when you are telling yourself, it's valid that I feel how I feel. It's valid that I'm afraid. It's valid that I don't know how to do this. It's valid that this is uncomfortable and I don't like it. And I'm going to be on my own side and I'm going to be kind to myself. This is how we clarify our motivations and how we find real fuel versus toxic fuel. Okay? When we are beating ourselves up, we are sometimes pushing ourselves down a path we don't need to go on. We are trying to become someone we don't need to become. We are trying to do something we don't need to do. We are working from conditioning that tells us that we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not lovable unless we do this thing. So when we shift into self-compassion, and that makes a whole bunch of our pain go away, and then we don't feel motivated to do the thing, chances are that means the thing that we were trying to do was a toxic thing. When we are compassionate with ourselves, and we validate ourselves, and we're kind to ourselves, and the pain still exists, there's still something we want to become. There's still something we want to move towards. There's still something in our being that says, I want to do this thing for me. Because that's an experience I want to have. That's how we know it's true motivation. We do not need to beat ourselves up to be motivated. If something is really truly for you, you will be motivated more to go towards it when you're not beating yourself up, because reality will be pushing you. The discomfort of where you're at, the actual circumstances, the thing that you're facing that you really don't want to have to face anymore, or that deep desire inside of you to become something, whether it makes anyone love you or approve of you or changes anything or not, will come up. Motivation will be there from real reality. You do not need to be mean to yourself to be motivated. And in fact, again, I will say it, I truly believe that if you need to be mean to yourself in order to motivate yourself, whatever you're going for might not be something that's actually right for you. If the only way you feel motivated to do what you think you need to do is because you think, I'm shitty if I don't do this, that's probably conditioning. I'm not good enough if I don't do this, conditioning. I'm unworthy of love and I'm shitty if I don't do this, conditioning. I love myself completely, unconditionally, for how and where I am right now. It's okay for me to stay this way for the rest of my life if I want to. And then there's still motivation there to go after the thing because you want it for yourself, because you're curious, because this is just not the life you want to live. because there's an experience over there that you want to have, because this doesn't feel satisfying for you, that's true motivation. So we want to constantly be checking in with ourselves on what's motivating me. Is reality motivating me? I'm moving towards what is wanted? Or am I just trying to become good enough and earn love? And if I truly felt loved and safe, I would not be motivated to become this thing. That's the last piece I want you to consider when you're looking at the mountaintop you're trying to get to. Would you still be willing to climb if you felt that you were unconditionally loved for who you are right now? Is there still motivation to go? Because reality is saying, this is something that's right for me. This is something I want to experience. I know this is who I'm supposed to be for myself, whether anyone approves of it or not. Or is it all based on, because I'm shitty now? Because if it's all based on I'm shitty now, I would say back up. Let's figure out where that's coming from first. Right? And this is the big work I do with a lot of people in coaching. A lot of people in my coaching come to me and say, like, my life isn't good enough and I have to become these things and I have to do all this stuff. And nope. That was all just childhood conditioning that was, I'm not going to be loved by mom and dad until I become that thing. And what we really need to do is process the pain and the grief of not being loved for who we were. And then eventually finding what we actually want to become, which might look completely different, via finding love for ourselves first, via finding safety for ourselves first. This is why compassion and curiosity are always the first step. As we are going after what we want, we need to make sure it's coming from true motivation, not toxic motivation. And if the only way you feel motivated to go ahead is because you say, that's what's going to make me lovable, or good enough, or finally approved of, we have some processing to do first. And it's not even to say that you won't become that thing. Maybe you will. But right now, we don't actually know, because we're working from toxic fuel. We have to create safety first. We have to process the grief of not being loved for who we were first. And then we will figure out what we want and what's actually good enough and what isn't. Okay? The mountain is not in the way. The mountain is the way. It's not going to look how you think it's going to look. It's not going to go how you think it's going to go. And you are going to have to fail. You are going to have to do things that are uncomfortable. You are going to have to write when you don't want to. You're going to have to learn to feel your emotions when they are uncomfortable. You figure it out on the path, not before the path. You become capable by practicing and walking and doing and assuming that everything that comes up on the path is the path. Don't assume it's an obstacle. Don't assume there's another way. Don't assume that this means you can't. Yeah, and I'm running out of time. Nope. Right? That's all toxic fuel. You have time. You have time. If you walk the path, you're going as fast as you can. So we balance that with, if I truly loved myself, how fast am I capable of going? And do I even want to do this? Because if the only thing that's making us go forward is I'm lazy and I'm shitty and no one's going to love me unless I do this, that's not it. Real motivation comes from, I'm good enough how I am right now. This just isn't what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want to experience. And then I'm going to let the path be what the path is. I'm going to let myself suck. I'm going to let myself fail. I'm going to assume that whatever comes up is what it's supposed to be. It's not in the way, it is the path. And I'm going to figure it out as I go. I'm going to fail my way there. And I'm just going to keep checking in with what I'm capable of, making myself safe, and doing what I'm capable of from that place of safety. Okay? Okay. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was educational. I hope that was supportive. And of course, there are things in life that are not this. Sometimes we just need to grieve and be upset and process. And I'm here for you if you want coaching, if you want the mystery school. I've got lots of other free resources. There are lots of other people who do this. Okay? So if you're needing help on your path, I would love to hear from you. Or I hope that my free content helps. Or work with a therapist, or do whatever you feel called to. But you don't have to do it by yourself. We're all here to support each other. Okay? Okay. Have a great week, day, month, year, whenever I see you again. And until then, goodbye.